Dan Dickau here on the ISO, the Gonzaga Nation Media Network. It's a big week. It is NBA Draft Week 2022. The draft is on Thursday, the 23rd. You will have lots of coverage on Gonzaga Nation SI, a couple podcasts and shows with myself, as well as our journalists, Cole Forsman and Asher Ali. They will also be writing some stories, some profiles on Holmgren, Andrew Nemhart, where they may project at, and then where they ultimately land on Thursday. But this episode is going to focus a little bit on anybody with a connection to the state of Washington that expects and or plans to hear their name in the NBA draft. First one, obviously, that I think their name will be called, Gonzaga Bulldog Chet Holmgren, originally from Minnesota. He's a one and done at Gonzaga, as you probably are well aware of. And it was expected that was going to be the case. It was expected when he committed to Gonzaga. It was a one and done. And he was probably going to be a top 3 pick in the NBA draft. Well, his freshman year didn't disappoint in regards to his production, helping Gonzaga back to a deep NCAA tournament run to the Sweet 16, hoping for a national title, but it didn't work out that way. He solidified himself in analysts' eyes as a top 3 pick. I personally don't think he's going to fall below 2. I think that the Magic selecting at 1 have an unbelievably difficult decision to make. I think Jabari Smith has a chance to be a really good player. I do think Holmgren will have a better career than than Smith. But some people are on the fence about Holmgren due to his much talked about lack of strength. There was a tremendous article on SI.com today by Greg Bishop. Go check it out, in regards to talking about the uniqueness of his athleticism. And so many times people condition or think of athleticism to be strictly how strong you are, how high you can jump, how straight you can, or how quickly you can run. Athleticism combines everything. It combines your hand-eye coordination. It combines your agility, your ability to change speeds, change directions. It also includes your ability to land. I think athleticism also includes your ability to stay away from injury. And this article written by Greg Bishop on SI.com really took a deep dive into some of the training that he's been doing in Santa Barbara at what's called the P3 Institute, which a lot of guys train at before the draft day. And they're talking about how he is such a good athlete that it would be hard to not go with him. And so in looking at that, Orlando's got a difficult decision because, like I said, Smith has got a lot of potential, but Holmgren has question marks that a lot of people are going to ask about. I think it might take deep into his rookie year or second year for Holmgren to really get comfortable and become impactful. Now, I think he is a multiple-time All-Star, but so many fans, don't understand the process of the draft, don't understand the process of building a roster, don't understand the process that it takes to be a good player. All indications that I've seen and heard about Holmgren, whether it's watching him at practice, the games at Gonzaga, talking to the staff, he works as hard as anybody. He puts in the time, he puts in the effort, he's diligent, he's dedicated, and he will be a great pro. So I think he's going to go number 2 because I just think there's something about everything that I've read that, the Magic have locked in on Smith at 1, which also then helps alleviate a little bit of pressure by being that number 1 pick for Chet Holmgren. He's also going to be going to an organization in the Thunder that have always done a good job of stockpiling talent for when the time was right to strike in the draft. They did it with Durant, Harden, and Westbrook, which resulted in a trip to the NBA Finals. They've got 3 first-round draft picks this year. So it'll be interesting to see if he's the headliner of that group. Next player with ties to the state of Washington, Paolo Banchero, O'Dea High School, played at Duke. I think he's the 3rd best prospect in the draft. I think he's the most NBA ready of my top three, being Smith, Holmgren, and Banchero. I think he's the most ready. I think he will be a multiple-time All-Star. I think he will be Rookie of the Year. But a lot of people have slidden Jaden Ivey of Purdue up into that 3 spot and dropped Banchero down to the 4th. I don't see it. I think Ivey's really good, but I think Banchero is just that good. He was unbelievable player in the state of Washington. He almost went to either Gonzaga or University of Washington, which were in his final grouping of schools before ultimately deciding to play for Coach K in his last year at Duke, which was a good decision. I mean, how can you say no to Duke? But again, it's a cool connection to the state of Washington for Paolo Banchero to be a probable top 3 pick. So there you have the 2 high lottery picks that will be in the green room with connections to the state of Washington. The state of Washington has 2 other prospects that have been invited to what's called the NBA green room. It's essentially where if you know you're going to be picked in the top 20 picks or so, you're a definite first round pick. There's almost been consensus by NBA staffs that you will be gone before the end of the first round. A lot of times you'll be invited to the green room. I believe there's 23 players this year that are invited to the green room. So there's a pretty good consensus of who those top 23 players are. But the 2 with connections to the state of Washington, I think both have their potential best basketball ahead of them. I think they're both, I don't want to call them projects because I don't think that is the case. I think they're guys that are hard workers. When I've talked to a couple different trainers and coaches around the state of Washington who've either worked with them, coached against them, and then tracked their progress along the years. But it would be Tari Eason as well as Marjan Beauchamp. So both these guys are taking different routes to the NBA. We'll start with Tari Eason. He played at Federal Way not behind, but alongside Jalen McDaniels for quite some time. Also then played at Garfield for Brandon Roy. But he's a guy that always had to play out of position considering what his position will be in the pros. So that's one of my problems that I always have with youth basketball coaches. You got a tall kid, an athletic kid, you put him in the post. Well, Tari Eason had to play the 4 and sometimes the 5 growing up and in high school. And it kind of limited some of maybe his opportunities for growth early in his career. But because of how he works, because of his high motor, because of what I've heard of his diligence to try to get better, he's closing that gap on his perimeter and wing skills in a hurry. Now, I don't think he's a knockdown shooter by any stretch, but his ball handling has gotten better. His decision making has gotten better. He's showing that, with the proper attention to focus and detail and fundamental work, he can be a wing at the NBA level. The things that he's got going right now, he's a terrific athlete. He's a great defender who really prides himself on it. He can score in transition extremely well. And I think he can also really have room for growth in how he learns the game. Again, he'll learn the game as a 4, as an interior player. Now he's learning it from the wing spot. So the word that I've heard talked about him is willing learner, willing listener. And that's a huge thing. So because he's got the length, he's got the athleticism. He's not unbelievably strong at this point in time, but his frame kind of shows the ability that he's going to be a bigger, stronger athlete later on than he is right now. So seeing him kind of projected anywhere from about the 15 to the 24 mark. So that's really cool to see. He started his career at Cincinnati University, then transferred to LSU, where he had a great start, kind of under the radar. He just blew up early in the season and at the start of the SEC play. Struggled a little bit down the stretch, but I think a lot of that had to do with the team's scouting reports really kind of focusing in on taking away some of his strengths, getting back in transition, walling him up, not giving him free line drives in transition to the rim, and then understanding like, hey, he's a work in progress shooting the ball. Let's make him score in the half court. So those things I think he works on. I think he's going to have a nice pro career. It's cool to see a kid from the state of Washington with that opportunity. So best of luck to him. Next, player from the state of Washington. He's bounced around a little bit, to say the least. He's a kid who grew up in Yakima, Marjan Beauchamp. But before high school, he decided to move to Seattle, and he was going to play for, or he did play for Brandon Roy as a freshman. So started it at Nathan Hale, transferred to Garfield, transferred to Beach. After that, he transferred to one of these academy-like prep schools that was going to prepare him for the NBA draft. Well, this academy/school didn't work out, kind of left him with where to go, where to play, what to do. Ended up going back to Yakima, playing for Yakima Valley Community College, where he put up some monster numbers. And the NWAC's a good junior college league. I don't think the athleticism is off the charts, but there's some really good players. There's some tremendous coaches in the NWAC, but he put up some big numbers and had to start searching for his next opportunity. There wasn't a lot of Division I interest for whatever reason I don't know if it was grades. I don't know if it was kind of the background information that a lot of schools will do on players, such as the NBA does, but there wasn't a ton of interest. And he decided with an invite to go play for the G League Ignite for a season. And the G League Ignite is essentially, you're looking at your college eligible players, excuse me, that don't want to go to college. They essentially want to jumpstart their professional career and learn how it is to be a pro. The G League Ignite team is essentially run by the NBA. It's coached by a number of guys that used to play and or coach in the NBA. And so they're doing their best impersonation of how an NBA franchise runs in regards to player development, game and practice prep, scouting, film work. So it's essentially immersing yourself in an NBA experience to try to put yourself in the best foot forward. And so it looks like he took this opportunity, ran with it, played extremely well throughout the course of the season, improved on some things that were necessary, but really was able to kind of put together a consistent body of work in showing NBA scouts what he could do. Also put together a consistent body of work in regards to his effort on the floor, and that some of the perceived notions that may have been incorrect or may have been correct, I don't know, were not necessary to look at. Because when you read some articles on him over the last couple of weeks and months leading up to the draft, you know, he did bounce around a little bit, but he is a high potential player that is just looking for an opportunity. And I think in reading some of these articles, I think he's ready to make the most of it. I hate to say that some guys going into this draft process are prima donnas, but when you read about him, he sounds very appreciative. He sounds very understanding of where his opportunities are lying. It sounds like he's ready to make the most of it. But now when you look at his game, you know, he's a long, wiry wing. I think he's got good ball handling skills. I think his jump shot is solid. I don't think he has the look of being a guy who is going to be a knockdown shooter at any point in time. But I think he's going to be a good shooter. I think, you know, he gets out in transition. He can finish because of his length, his athleticism. I think that, you know, he's got the ability to play out of pick and rolls is what I've seen. I don't know if he's got the ability to kind of be a wide pin down guy, kind of, you know, find open areas and just be a sniper coming off of screens and stuff. But that will be determined. You know, I think he's got the chance to be a good, really good defender with that length, his wiry build. You know, many times you look at that build and you kind of look at who in the NBA is similar to that. I don't want to go so far as to say he would be in Andrew Wiggins, because Andrew Wiggins was the #1 pick in the NBA draft. He's been phenomenal. Or an Andre Iguodala, who's been a multiple-time All-Star. But he's got that similar kind of build, that similar kind of body where he's long, he's wiry, he's athletic. He can kind of really sneak up on you and do some things with his athleticism. But all in all, it's a tremendous story. Wish him nothing but the best of luck. So 4 players from the state of Washington with some great ties to this 2022 NBA draft. So I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have lots of coverage on Gonzaga Nation SI, whether it's some articles up or some podcasts and shows. Check us out. So for the ISO, I'm Dan Dickau.